Good evening. The Tuesday, May 20th, 2025 meeting of the Sugar Land Development Corporation is called to order at 7:54 p.m.
The meeting of Sugar Land 4B Corporation is called to order at 6:54 p.m.
I meant 6:54 p.m. I know. So, Madam Secretary, do we have anyone signed up to speak? Public comment?
No, we do not.
Okay, we're going to go right into item number 4, contracts and agreements. A, consideration of and action on approval of 3 economic development performance agreements between the Sugar Land Development Corporation, Sugar Land 4B Corporation, and LCFRE Sugar Land Town Square, LLC, to fund various aspects of the improvements and repositioning efforts in support of the Sugar Land Town Square. And Jessica, let's, is the presentation for all 3 of these items at once? Okay.
Yes, sir.
So we'll hear the presentation and then we'll take each of these individually. So Jessica Hubble, please take it away.
Awesome. Good evening, everybody. Before we get started, I do want to introduce some of our guests here. We have Tom Patterson with Reeby's, and then we have Jason Dean. He's the head of real estate portfolio optimization with Pennybacker, and then Vince Reyna, who is the co-chief investment officer with Pennybacker. So they came in for this presentation this evening. And so what we're going to be talking about this evening is an incentive for Sugar Land Town Square. So to get us started, I want to take us back to kind of how it all began, just to give some background. So as you guys likely remember, Town Square, 25 years ago was just that piece of grass you see on the top left. It was just a dream. We did not have a traditional downtown here in Sugar Land, and so the vision was to create that downtown. And so it was thought up by planned community developers after doing a lot of research countrywide to figure out what would work here. And so as a 32-acre mixed-use development that was thought of, the construction began in 2001, and at that time the development included 550,000 square feet of office, 200,000 square feet of commercial, a 300-key hotel, which at that time, and I believe still is the only full-service hotel here in Fort Bend County. There's 26,000 square feet of meeting space, 167 residential condos, and then a public plaza, which we see outside. And then a big funding mechanism to get this started was the creation of TERS 1. So this was created in 1998, and it expires this December in 2025. And so this is the first time that we're seeing one of our TERSs come to an expiration. So it's really exciting to see how it performed. When the TERS was created, it had a base value of $5.5 million. And then at the 2024 tax year, it was appraised at $196 million. I went back and looked at some financial forecasting for the TERS, and it was estimated to reach $101 million in 2025. So we well surpassed that. So I would say our job here is done. And then just to add, aside from the TERS, there was city investment, obviously. This is our first P3 and a big venture of the city and PCD. So to date, the city has put in around $60 million plus incentives. This has come from SL4B, SLDC, hot funding the TERS to fund things like infrastructure. We own the convention center, plaza improvements, marketing support, community events, and more. So it's something that we continue to reinvest in because it is a staple in our community, our downtown, our heart of our city. And so I just wanted to showcase that. So in 2013, Limestone Investments moved in here as the operating partner, and at that time, PCD still retained the property management status, and then they oversaw office and retail leasing. Since Limestone took ownership, they've invested around $70 million into this property through a variety of ways. One of the biggest, most impactful changes aesthetically that we've seen when they came on was the plaza improvement that was done in 2017 and 2018. If you remember, the one on the top left is what the plaza used to look like. It was a lot of pavement. The fountain did not have a walkway. I guess people were sick of walking around the fountain. I don't know. But so we put a pathway in between to make it a little bit more easier to get through, and then added a lot more green space, some raised meeting spaces for people, some shade. And so just made it a lot more, I guess, livable for the families. And if you come here at all, you always see kids and families playing outside. So it was an amazing improvement. That project cost was around $1.5 million, and then SL4B reimbursed $750,000. In 2019, Reeby's was brought in to reposition Town Square, really think about how we move it into the future, really look at retail leasing and how we can change it, update the marketing, look at rebranding, make the events a bit bigger than they were just in the plaza, bring them out to the streets, and just kind of really think what the future of Town Square could look like. This was one of the first phases. This was phase 1 repositioning strategy. Reeby's really looked at the aesthetics of Town Square. They put around $1 million in to enhance the streetscapes, the design and remodel of about 15 tenant storefronts, and then they refreshed the branding and introduced innovative event programming. And I think to some people, you wonder like, why does this matter? But if you recall what it looked like before in some of these befores, there was a lot of hard surfaces, a lot of brick, a lot of beige, really high trees. It wasn't pedestrian scale. And so just by making more places for people to sit and eat, adding the festoon lighting, we get comments every time we host anybody here about how inviting Town Square is and how the environment and the feel has changed. And adding the festoon lighting was a labor of love that took a very long time and a lot of bargaining with our fire marshal. But it was fully legal. I want to be very clear, it is fully legal. But just adding that just completely changed the look of it. And at night, it's beautiful, it's inviting. And so those aesthetic improvements really go a long way. And the tenant storefront refinishing was a big driver into how they were able to land BB Italia, how they were able to land some of the tenants that they have here and pull them from the city. In 2023, Reeby's was named the property manager, still overseeing retail leasing, marketing, and events, and then PCD still remains the office broker. I wanted to give you a 5-year snapshot of kind of what we've seen here in Town Square, because it tells a story. So if you look at the top left, you see the office, and as you see at COVID, it's declined ever since, which should be no surprise to anyone here. The office and retail definitely shot back up after COVID, but it's starting to continue to decline. Mixed beverage tax has done well, but again, we're seeing a little drop. Hotel occupancy has bounced back, sales tax revenue, and then you see the visitation. The visitation's really interesting to me because pre-COVID, they saw over 4 million people here, and now in 2024, they're seeing 4 million. So visitation's back, right? People are still coming here. They want to come here. This is where the action is. But as you can see, post-COVID, the world is it's changed, right? The office, the way that this development was built in early 2000s, it no longer makes sense. We have too much office. We don't have enough residential. We probably have a little bit too much retail. So how do we get this into the next evolution now that the TERS is done? Just because the TERS is done does not mean that this development's done or our job or our role is done. So that's what we're gonna talk about tonight, is how do we take it into that next wave? But I will say, aside from office, these are honestly really healthy numbers though, but kind of the key indicator that we always talk about here in redevelopment is when we start to see that decline, you want to intervene before it continues to decline. And that's what we're trying to do here, is to get ahead of something before it gets to a point that it's harder to turn back. Oh, and I also wanted to add perspective too with the 4 million, because I think it's really impactful to think about. So 4 million people come here last year, 300,000 at the stadium, right? 400,000 at SFC. The one higher than this is the mall, which is at 7 million. So you just think about the amount of people that come to this area every year, and the more we capitalize that and continue to reinvest and make it a place where you want to come continually, the better off we'll be, because they're already coming here. And so then in early 2025, Pennybacker came into the party, and they reached out to the city. They are a sub-advisor to Lionstone. Reeby's is still in the same position. PCD's is still in the same position. But Pennybacker was talking to us about how we turn Town Square into the next phase. Like, what does that look like? Is the city interested in partnering again and really thinking about how we continue the success of Town Square but turn it into something else? And so that's where those conversations lead to. And I'll pass it off to Alva so she can talk about this next phase.
Okay, so to add some more detail on some of the challenges that we're seeing, and this is not unique to Sugar Land, this is really nationwide, but for this development, we are seeing it as an aging property, right? So we're at 25 years, which is really kind of the time where you're starting to see some needs in infrastructure and kind of that reinvestment. We also have seen post-COVID a very competitive office market and the flight to quality from tenants, right? So the Energy Corridor, West Chase District, the Galleria, all those have been offering a lot of amenities like free rent and tenant improvements. And so it's been kind of that occupancy level that we've seen to kind of struggle. From the competitive retail market, we're seeing some different trends in the tenants, in the consumers, as well. And so we're seeing a lot of experience wants, you want the Instagram, you want the TikTok videos. And so we're wanting to also, or needing to adapt to those market demands. And then number 4 is, again, not enough concentrated residents in Sugar Land Town Square. And then coupled with some lessening in daytime population, it really equals that hotel occupancy tax decline, the sales tax decline, and then again, the pressure on the office occupancy percentage. So as Jessica had mentioned, we've been talking to Pennybacker since early 2025, and they proposed a $42 million reinvestment into Sugar Land Town Square over the next 5 years. They have asked us to do a 50-50 partnership, and what's really unique about Sugar Land is that we've always had really great partners to work with, and Pennybacker being one of them as well. And so as we look at their ask, we had 5 different buckets that we had initially discussed. Building H improvements, which is the former Minute Maid building right here that now houses Nexus Waters and has Salada at the bottom. Office tenant improvements, deferred maintenance, again, that HVAC, the elevators, the roof, the things that need that refresh. Building B improvements, which we know as our Industrial Info Resources building, but also has Bar Louie at the bottom, and leasing commissions. So after conversations with our city attorney's office and then having internal conversations on strategy and where we need to really reinvest, we landed on these 3 different buckets. And I'll go into details about them, but really the max incentive that we're recommending today is $12.5 million over 5 years. This project, with the assumptions on the appraised value of the development, the number of jobs that we're requesting, the sales tax the city receives, and different, office tenant improvements that we're going to be recommending. It has a 13% rate of return and a 7.5-year payback period. But there's a lot of qualitative factors that go into this incentive. So it's not really, we're looking for the dollar-to-dollar payback. There is a huge investment and huge benefit in us reinvesting into our first P3 when it comes to our sales tax, our property tax, and then the quality of life that it adds to our residents, our businesses, and our visitors. So this is a quick snapshot, and in front of you, I've put in the income statement for the SLDC Corporation as well as the SL4B Corporation. So this is what our commitment will look like over the next 5 fiscal years. So FY26 between both corporations, 50-50 coming out of each of them, would be $1.5 million, 27 would be $3 million, 28 and 29 would be $3.75 million, and ending it up in FY30 with $500,000. All this has been forecasted and put into the incentive lines for both corporations. And as you can see in our income statements, we are still very much over policy and have a healthy ending fund balance. So building B improvements, again, this is the Industrial Info Resources building with Bar Louie at the bottom. It would include modernization of shared amenities and communal office spaces. So at the top left, there is a pocket park that is between the garage and the office building, and it would get a refresh, and it's a really great amenity for our tenants, our visitors as well. It is the most trafficked area into the plaza for Sugar Land Town Square, and so it'd be a welcome addition. The middle picture is that lobby refresh that you're seeing, as well as a gym with showers, which I say showers all the time because that's what tenants are looking for. Like literally, that's all they say. And so it's good for us. And although the gym is not part of this incentive, it is something that the property is already working on. And then the last picture is Hatchway's Cafe, which would be a great amenity. Again, you can order a snack or lunch, have it delivered to your desk, or come just, enjoy and have a meeting. For the 4B Corporation, this is a project that you've seen before, that we've brought to you before. And so we're taking that agreement and lumping it into this incentive. And so in effect, that previous agreement is null and void. Building H is the former Minute Maid building, now houses Nexus Waters, who has signed a 15-year office lease with us. It would also be very similar. It would include entry, lobby, and signage renovation, garden renovation, and furniture, fixtures, and equipment. I do want to call out that this is a $2 million fund versus Building B with $6 million. There's already been heavy investment into Building H. When Minute Maid was here, there was investment, and they unfortunately just kind of never used it just because COVID hit, and what happened after that, we don't really like to talk about. So there's that difference in the dollar amounts, but it's a really great building, and we had a BizNow event there on the 8th floor a couple of weeks ago, and everybody was raving about how great the scene is. Also, you can look at downtown Houston from that 8th floor, so it's a really great building. Office tenant improvements, these are examples of what is being offered in the Energy Corridor West Chase District. the Galleria and the Woodlands. This is what the tenant trends are looking for. They want, the frosted glass, the co-working spaces. And so to be proactive and to be competitive in the market, we wanted to have a funding mechanism to already have that incentive for when, we have our office brokers that partner with us in Sugar Land Town Square saying, okay, we have this tenant on the hook, we just need to give them a push to sign the lease. We want to be ready. We don't want to, have to go through all the process. We just want to be ready to take action. So for the performance agreements, today in front of you are 3 5-year performance agreements we are recommending for approval. They would require the creation and/or retention of at least 650 cumulative primary jobs across the 3 agreements, annual proof of eligible expenditures being spent within 60 days of each agreement year, and the owner must meet construction and spending requirements on materials, services, furniture, fixtures, and equipment. The most important thing to note here is that every incentive payment is reimbursement based. It would need to be tied to verified compliance with agreement terms. If in any year of the agreement, certain terms weren't met, there are clawback provisions for payments back to the city in any of those cases. One thing before I wrap up that I do want to note is that we had done a study with Urban 3 a couple of years ago, and they have a Purple Mountain model. And out of that study, if you're familiar, and if you're not, we're going to also bring this up in orientation for some of you. Sugar Land Town Square is our Purple Mountain. So we get the highest value per acre from Sugar Land Town Square. So it only makes sense that we reinvest back into this P3 and make sure it continues to flourish into the future. So in summary, the incentive recommendation that's in front of you today is an aggressive short-term solution to enter or re-enter a very competitive market. But it is the initial phase of a much bigger vision that includes the exploration of additional housing in Sugar Land Town Square, the exploration of the Marriott Hotel expanding and improving, and also ongoing evaluation to be able to adapt to market demands. I do want to note that the 4A and 4B funding does align for this reinvestment into our community, and that the strategic support of our P3s is an active investment and reinvestment we're going to have to continue to make sure that they realize their full community benefit. So as I said before, we as staff recommend approval of the 3 5-year performance agreements, each one being specific to these 3 different bullets. It has been reviewed by the Economic Development Committee and City Council as well. I'll open it up for any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you, Alba and Jessica. So SLDC is made up of city council members, all city council members, and 4B is made up of Steve, me, Suzanne, William, and Mary. So I'm going to open it up to SLDC for questions. And Steve, do you want to open it up 4B for
I want to open up 4B for questions as well.
Who's got questions? You.
I've been blessed to be with this from the very beginning as chairman of the Planning and Zoning Commission back in 2000. And I've seen the genesis of the project from what we thought it was. And I think there were somewhere around 5 or 6 amendments before we ever got it built. And the reason for those amendments was because the market changed. And so we've continued to watch the market change. We've always been willing to come forward and invest as a partnership. And it is a partnership. You can't expect someone else to invest. You don't put your money into it too. So absolutely, I think this is the right thing to do. I think we need to protect our original investment. And we need to bring this thing to the next level. We need to meet the new marketplace demands, and then we can roll for another, 5 or 10 years, and then the market's going to change again. We're going to be back doing the same thing again. But I absolutely support this.
Thank you.
Questions? Suzanne?
Thank you. You mentioned a 13% rate of return. You're going to find the slide, aren't you?
Yes.
Thank you. Awesome. So I was looking at that, and I'm thinking, does that include the increase of sales tax revenue that we expect, or is that just a financial rate of return?
It is forecasted. We have an impact calculator that we plug in the numbers to, and it also includes the conclusion of the TERS and what we would assume we would receive in sales tax after that.
So that's probably conservative based on
It is
everything
very
you said?
conservative.
We did
Okay.
it conservatively.
Based on the last, every rate of return? Okay,
We did it conservatively.
awesome, thank you.
William?
Would you please bring the graph up that shows the county and that big tall tower?
Yes.
Now, I really don't know if everyone can see it, whatever their device they're looking at this on. This is absolutely outstanding. And this is proof that this center has earned our attention and deserves the future in our city. I love this graph, and I remember that presentation. Thank you.
Good, I'm glad you remember it. We love this.
Anyone else? Rob?
All right, so a couple things here. You know, bringing back jobs to Sugar Land is definitely one of the things that I campaigned on, and so some of the other candidates did as well. So I commend you on that. The 40% commercial vacancy in office space is something we need to address here in the city. I do want to applaud you for adding the payback period. You know, we want to make sure that when we are investing in the city that we are getting a return, you know, as the city and the constituents. One thing that I'm curious about is, one, all these updates and improvements, is it really what's going to move the needle? I know it's a tough market out there. You know, is adding a little bit of green space in a cafe and the foyer, is that really going to bring in and attract the employers? And what is our current status with these employers? Are we in current negotiations to bring people in? Or, you know, who's leading the charge on that, and where do we currently stand?
So I think for the improvement specifically to the office industry, we are wanting to go up to the Class A level that is being demanded. There really is no flexibility, and so that includes the, you know, the gyms with showers. And I mean, I can't tell you how many times people have said we want a gym, but it has to include showers. The cafe, the co-working space is a big one, and we've also have an agreement with Plug and Play, who is now leasing office space here in Town Square, where the co-working space will become even more important. But like I had said before, this is an aggressive short-term solution. There are still partnership and conversations we'll have for the long-term solution, an evolving solution that we'll have for Sugar Land and Town Square. As far as, you know, attraction, we do have an attraction part for our department, and we also partner with PCD, who's the current office broker for Sugar Land and Town Square, to go after these leads and make sure that we're being as proactive as possible. So it is a continuing partnership.
You know, if you look at the old Coke space, Minute Maid, and you look at Nexus Water now, and you look, I saw both those spaces, because I saw it originally when Minute Maid moved in there, and then I saw it with Nexus, because I used to be with that company. You look at the money they spent on their tenant improvements, and when you look at the results, it's nothing short of amazing. And I think that's what you're looking at for these. So if you haven't had a chance to tour that, we can get you a tour of that Nexus Water space to where you can see, you know, what I'll call it a first generation, and it really is a Class A space, different than what we had before.
Yeah, and I want to add, I think, you know, by just redoing the office, that wouldn't do it, right? Just adding housing, that wouldn't do it. Mixed-use properties it is a mix of everything. If you bring the people back to the office because of the amenities, then they're going to ask, where can I eat? Are there events in the plaza for me? Why do I come in here? So it is this balance, and I think a good thing about Reeves and Pennybacker is they've been very honest with us about, like, this is doing great, this is where we think we need to improve. And so it's something that we're going to have to continue to evaluate, evolve on, and kind of pull those levers when one's working and maybe one's not doing the best. I mean, there's no like one.
It's like any asset, you got to invest in your asset.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So, and the consumer demands change, and so.
Motion to approve.
Wait, we still have some more coming. Rob, did you finish the questions? Do you have anything else?
So you opened up a couple
Yeah.
points here. One of them was about switching to more residential. Is there a bigger plan for what's going on here that you guys would like to elaborate on? And obviously there's some retail spaces still opened up. What's the bigger plan for this project?
So preliminary stages, right? This was phase 2 and entering into it. The land use plan that was approved by the city did identify this regional activity center, which extends all the way past Methodist, as an area that could accommodate more housing, more denser housing. And so when we look at our population and where we can accommodate more housing that is least impactful on our residential neighborhoods, this is a perfect area. So the next phase would be exploring where that would make sense, whether it's surface lots, what it would look like to what's the word? Convert, I'm like, what's the word? Convert, like, unused space there. What does that financially look like? So it's a lot of exploration that's going to have to go in from our side as a city when it comes to zoning and what that would look like to bring forward to P&Z and council for ultimate approval. And then on the partners end, where does it make sense to potentially add housing? What does that look like? And with the Marriott, again, can we add more rooms? Can there be expansion of meeting space? So it's really just exploring everything to try to identify where our opportunities are and also where will it not work, and we can rule that out. But we need to keep exploring it in general for this entire regional activity center.
Okay. And then final question, how many jobs are currently in that location in the center? And then we're going to add hopefully 650 with this, so what would be that total that we're at?
I can get you the full number,
Yeah.
but we do assume, or the last time I checked, it would be over 1,000.
Yeah, it's well over 1,000.
Oh, so we're less than half capacity then, based on that, right?
They have to retain
Or
or
create.
attract. You have to keep the jobs per the statute. It's retain or attract. So you either attract new jobs and you're committing to not losing jobs, because if we're reinvesting in here, people shouldn't be leaving.
So then to reiterate that, so max is 1,000, right?
No.
Max is not 1,000. No, with this incentive, we're hoping to be over 1,000.
Right, but right now we're at where, 350, 450?
No. We are closer to 600. Tom, correct me if I'm wrong. Yes.
So we're already at the number we want to be at?
Go ahead.
So when I went back to the ROI, there's a lot of qualitative factors. And so this incentive is more geared towards funding or incentivizing the infrastructure and improvements that we need. We know that the primary jobs will come with it, and that's where the office tenant bucket specifically would be to attract those tenants and hopefully get those numbers up. But it wasn't the ultimate goal for this incentive, although it is part of it.
This is Mary. Isn't the goal to also make sure we don't lose any?
Yes.
Correct.
Towns-
It's creation and
Yeah.
retention.
Yes, that's how the funding is set up to work. So we have, in Town Square historically, has had long-term tenants, 10 to 15-year tenants. And what we don't want to see is tenants continuing to opt out of their lease to go to places that are newer, maybe cheaper rents, getting incentives. If we don't start reinvesting in here to keep people here, we will continue to lose people to other markets. And so the way that the state statute set up with 4A and 4B, it's retain or attract. That's the requirement.
Rob, are you good? Or do you have anything else you want to follow up with?
I mean, I would motion to amend, add some kind of performance incentive to at least add some jobs versus just keeping the baseline.
Well, we're not able to amend right now. Please address that question. Are we actually giving incentives to stay still, right? Or are we giving incentives to increase?
The primary employer is the kicker.
Sorry.
I just wanted to clarify, for the statute for 4A and 4B, we are only allowed to, or we can only count primary jobs. For office jobs, that is only headquartered or regional headquartered jobs. There are other jobs in Town Square that are office jobs that might not meet the definition of primary employer. And there's also other jobs that might be retail jobs. So per the contract, we are only going to be able to count the primary jobs towards that contract. That does not equal all of the jobs that are in Town Square.
Right, all I'm looking for clarification on is where are we at today and where do we want to be?
Yeah, and I'm just trying to clarify that it's kind of a little bit of apples and oranges, because you can have the number of all the jobs in Town Square and maybe where we eventually want to be, and then you have only the primary jobs per the statute in Town Square. And so there's a difference in terms of the economic impact and then actually what is in the contract per the statute for primary employers. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, my recommendation would be adding clarity to the contract with these points.
So the contract does specifically say primary jobs in accordance to the statute. Is that what you're looking for?
But it goes back to the jobs already there, right? I think we need clarity on what we're looking at, whether they're existing or additional stretch jobs that we're adding.
So I think to clarify, we need a balance. We have to have the mix of the office, the retail, the hotel. These contracts are specific to primary jobs like we talked about. we could say we want 1,500 jobs and they all be tourism-based. They can be the retail and the hotel. Those are going to be lower-paying jobs, and they're not going to be, it's not equitable. So like, we could sit here and say we want a total of 1,500 jobs, but depending on how those jobs play out, it's not going to have the same financial impact on the development as if we had a balance of office versus retail versus hospitality.
Right, understood. We just need to make sure we're very clear.
Okay, William?
So the term market demand really motivates me. So if the market says something, we have to listen. And what I really appreciate here is that you're always listening to the market, because the last thing that we need right now, in my opinion, as our city has got the focus of every developer and has the focus of, I mean, our greater community, everyone is watching Sugar Land right now. The last thing that I want to see is the decline of our, I'm going to call this our jewel. This town center is our jewel. Everyone knows it, and I am grateful that you are paying clear attention to the loud noise you're hearing regarding the market demand on this center. Please don't ever overlook that, because this is where it all happens right now. Thank you.
Okay, any more questions or discussion? Okay, so we're going to take these one by one. 4A1 and SLDC, and only SLDC. Building B improvement, $6 million, modernization of shared amenities, streetscapes, and communal office spaces to create more flexible, functional environments for tenants. And I believe that we have a motion to approve.
You do.
Okay, do we have a second?
Is this where can we amend it still?
Say what?
Can we amend it still?
No.
Second.
Suzanne's second, okay. Any more questions or comments? Okay, all in favor, raise your hand. Okay. Any against?
Yeah.
Okay,
Only
6
if we
to
change
1,
language.
it's approved 6 to 1. Now, Steve.
Sugar Land 4B Corporation takes up item 4A1, Building B improvements of $6 million, modernization of shared amenities, streetscapes, and communal office spaces to create more flexible, functional environments for tenants. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second? Mary, give it to Mary.
Mary? All approved? Got 5 ayes.
Okay, item 4A2, Building H improvements, $2 million, significant upgrades to the lobby, tenant signage, and garden renovations to improve the overall amenities of the building. Need a motion to approve.
So moved.
I got Rick Miller first, I got Joe Zimmerman second. All in favor, say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Any against? Okay, it passes 6 to 1.
Item 4A2, Building H improvements, significant upgrades to the lobby, tenant signage, and garden renovations to improve the overall amenities of the building. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Mary, second by Susan. Vote for,
Which one are we voting on?
all approved.
Which one? 4B. Oh, okay.
Okay, 4A3, office tenant improvements, $4.5 million, to attract and retain high-quality tenants linked to a job creation milestone. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second by Miller. All in favor, please raise your hand. Any against, please raise your hand. Okay, it passes 6 to 1.
Item 4A3, office tenants improvements, $4.5 million to attract and retain high-quality tenants linked to job creation milestones. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Susan, second by Mary. All vote. Yeah. Got 5 ayes and 0 nays. Motion passes.
Okay, SLDC, we need a motion to adjourn at 7:28. Okay, we have a motion, we are adjourned. SLDC is adjourned.
Sugar Land 4B Corporation, do I have a motion to adjourn? Have a motion. SLV 4B closes at 7:28.
Thank you, everyone.
Good job, guys.